Hi everybody. I just wanted to make another video about pain and how the narcissist conditions you to believe that pain is good. And on the surface, it sounds like an absurd proposition, and I think that even when you're in the narcissistic relationship, right, or the series of narcissistic relationships, you can't admit to yourself that you're a person that puts themselves in pain. And the reason why is because you've developed a bunch of coping strategies in order to disassociate from that pain. Disassociation is very common. When you're disembodied, when you don't feel your body, and when you're constantly in trying to get away from the root of the problem, trying to run away, trying to push past that pain, you stop noticing it after a while. And if you couple that with devaluation that the narcissist imposes upon you over time, that leads to a kind of understanding that, so what if I'm in pain? Pain is good, like no pain, no gain, as they say. And a lot of corporate environments embrace this notion. You don't necessarily have to be in a domestic or relationship with a narcissist to be exposed to antisocial currents within our society. Because in the corporate world, we see it all the time. People are expected to put in long hours. People are expected to perform, to freaking beat themselves into the ground in order to climb a corporate ladder, in order to please their boss at the expense of their coworkers. And I don't even have to go into it because most of you, if you've watched my channel, understand what I'm trying to get at here. The reality is that when you come out of all of this Stockholm fog, the one lesson, in addition to the one that I posited in the last video, that you learn, or another lesson you can learn, is that pain is bad. Pain is very bad. If you're in pain, you shouldn't be in the situation that you're in. And pain ultimately leads to burnout in anybody. If a person puts themselves under enough duress to perform something that they don't want, to do something that they don't want, to say something that they don't want, that all accumulates. That has a cumulative effect in the mind and the body. Putting yourself under duress is not normal. Even when you're in a relationship with somebody that you consider close, you can from time to time put yourself under duress to please the other person, right? For example, because I believe that no two people have the same interests. So if you're interested in X, Y, and Z, a person is interested in X, Y, and Z, and A, then that A, sometimes you have to, support that person in what they're interested in. But the difference between that sort of, occasional, support that you offer people and narcissism is that narcissism is a constant state of I mean, if you're in a narcissistic relationship, you're in a constant state of putting up with the pain in order to get some sort of gain. That's the whole narcissistic abuse cycle. They put you into this, they hypnotize you and put you into this mind frame where if I'm not in pain, if I'm not working towards something against my will, then this relationship won't work, right? Then this relationship will end, or I'm not worthy. That's the whole you know that's the narcissistic rhetoric. No pain, no gain. As long as you're in pain, you're doing something, worthwhile. And the children of narcissistic parents know this very well, because the conditioning is that if I'm in pain, then that means that if I'm under stress, then that means I can produce my best work. If I have the adrenaline coursing through my body and, constantly, then that means that I'm going to achieve something in life. But it doesn't work that way in the long run, because we're not built to work on adrenaline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're built to alternate between, having that inspiration, that spark of adrenaline, and rest. Rest is very important. And it's not emphasized if you're in a narcissistic situation. Because if you rest, then you can feel your body. And if you feel your body, then you can feel that something is off, potentially. So, and you can even see this in conditioning of dogs. Like, if you give a dog, if you give a dog a series of shocks that are mild, right, that are not incredibly debilitating, it will still pursue the reward, right? So let's say you have a piece of chicken that you want to give the dog. You can initiate these mild shocks, and it will still go after that chicken, as long as these shocks are not mild enough, are not strong enough to incapacitate the dog. And that's the strategy that the narcissist uses. They desensitize you to painful stimuli, to painful events, as a means of, in order for you to feel rewarded, even in the presence of pain. So you don't feel the pain, because that's a normal reaction. Normal reaction is you feel pain and you get away from the situation. But over time, if you feel that pain and you still go after a reward, over time you will be rewarded by the pain itself. That is, the fear conditioning, the narcissistic, pain conditioning that survivors of this sort of situation have been under for many, many years. And when you detach from contacting these people, you still have the residual idea that if you're not trying your very, very hardest, if you're not, in a state of constant pain, then you're not living life, you're not trying for anything. But the body eventually shuts off under those circumstances, as all of you have experienced. It goes into sympathetic overload, it goes into adrenal fatigue, because the body can only take so much adrenaline before it shuts off, before the adrenals become tired of working overtime. And so the best way to resolve this is by creating better habits that slow you down, and also making tasks pleasant. Um, so, for example, I used to, you know, do tasks that used to put lots of pressure on myself. I used to look back and forth at the smartphone to see how far along I'm into the task or how much time has passed. Um, but now I use a timer here. So it takes the edge off when I use this timer, because if I'm studying for something, I don't have to worry in the back of my mind, how long is this taking me? Is it taking me too long? Am I meeting a deadline? That's already off the table because I have a timer and I don't have to use my cognitive capacity that I could be using for studying on keeping track of the time, because I already know ahead of time how much time I want to spend on on a task before I engage with it. Um, then what else do I do? Just pacing yourself and making uh, your ambiance pleasant. You could use music. You could use aromatherapy. Because what the narcissist has done over time is they've detached you from your senses, from your body, from feeling like you're actually doing something. So ordinarily, people that have been in narcissistic and toxic relationships have done a lot under duress. So they've learned a lot, they've studied a lot, they've cooked for the narcissist, they've cleaned for the narcissist, but they've done that in a state of disassociation, in a state of duress. And when you're in that state of hyperdrive and hyperarousal, you can't stay you can't take stock of what you're doing necessarily. You're constantly in flight mode. So things like aromatherapy or music, they're grounding you, because they're creating a pleasant memory of you being relaxed in your body while engaging with something. So that would be highly recommended for anybody that is trying to, better themselves after this Stockholm situation, because it's incredibly debilitating, and you really feel like the effects are going to last forever, at least in the beginning, because of how, you're in vertigo, you're in a state of incredible anxiety, and that a very bad state. And if there's anything that can be learned from that, it's that you don't want to repeat the situation. You don't want to use the same behaviors that you've constantly used in order to put yourself back into that situation again, now that you're away from this toxic individual who was demanding that you be in a constant state of hyper alertness and producing, like a corporate boss, for example. It's all about production. If you don't produce, I'm gonna replace you. If you don't do this, and this is wrong. La la la. What are you doing? This sort of constant duress has become endemic in our society, in a capitalist society. Not only in capitalist society, but basically in any institution where antisocial people are at the helm. Um, you know, they want to bash in the skulls of their employees in order to make them feel like they're beholden to them. They want to induce that sort of slave mentality in them. And that's not for me, that's not for you, that's not for anybody that's been through it, because I'm fucking tired. Like, I'm tired of feeling like I have to outperform everybody, and I have to outperform myself, and putting myself under an incredible amount of pressure, because that doesn't give you results in the long term. Uh, it affects your health very badly. Um, and now that you have seen the effects of it, I really hope that you stop doing it. That's the only solution that you really have at the end of the day. Um, is to stop doing this behavior in the future. Um, take your time. Take your time. And, the whole notion that slow and steady wins the race is very, very true, because pain is not normal. It's not normal in other animal species. Like, other animal species try to avoid pain as much as possible. And so, but for some reason, humans, because we have a more complex brain, we're able to override that initial gut feeling, that instinct, that something is not right. So I was watching a documentary on the Nexium cult, and Keith Raniere, who was the leader of this cult, said something to his followers along the lines of, you're going to be extremely uncomfortable. You're going to see things here that make you raise your eyebrow. But you have to ignore that, because and ignoring that is going to bring you to a state of higher realization, right? And it seems really whacked out to a person that's never been in these kind of cult environments. But what he's doing is very transparent to people that have been through this and have lived through it. It's a desensitization. It's the idea that you have to ignore your basic instincts to get away, to flee, in order to endure something that makes you uncomfortable, so that then you can transcend your natural state, right? And once you transcend that natural state, more and more and more things that are abnormal and uncomfortable become acceptable to you. And when you add that into the addictive bonding cycle that the narcissist creates, it's a recipe for disaster, because a person is desensitized to pain. They're willing to take on more and more and more pain in order to get that huge carrot, that carrot at the end of the stick that the narcissist is dangling for you, in the form of a bonus, in the form of a pension plan, in the form of an IRA or a retirement account, or whatever they have that says, slave away for me, for my sake, against your own instincts and comfort and health, and you will get this huge $30,000 bonus at the end of the quarter. This mentality is everywhere. It's rampant, and it's not acceptable. And as a survivor of the Stockholm bond, you're actually in a better position to see the insanity behind this logic, and you see where it leads. It doesn't lead to a very good place. And the answer is to do things that are rewarding to you intrinsically, that you get some sort of positive sensation from. It could be drawing, it could be dancing, it could be music, it could be any number of things. But never do something in order to obtain, you know, an external carrot. That is very dangerous thinking. Try to find a job that you love being at. That could be a very important task for a person that's emerging from a narcissistic situation. Rethinking what career path they want. Rethinking, you know, because ultimately putting yourself under duress, especially if you've gone through something like this, is going to work against you. It's just the way it is, because your physiology has already said no. Has already said enough is enough. We're not doing this anymore. And so let me know what you think about that in the comments. And also, I'm doing this really interesting treatment that Mandrake recommended. I don't know if any of you remember Mandrake, but he also had a channel up about narcissism a long time ago. And it's a substance that's supposed to rewire your brain and cure PTSD, anxiety, and depression. So if the depressed brain is used to ruminating on things, which is a big thing for me, I tend to ruminate a lot on the same things, even though I don't want to. It's almost involuntary for me. This infusion or tablet is supposed to loosen the synapses in your brain so that you can create new experiences. It's a psychedelic compound, but you can create new experiences and new neural pathways that the depressed brain or a brain that's been under chronic stress can't make on its own. So I'm going to post regarding, the effects of that. And because ultimately I think that everybody wants to get out of this rut, including myself. But we need help. We need help from science. Because nobody wants to dwell on the narcissist, on all these people. But our brain doesn't allow us, because of the sort of conditioning that they've created in it, to put it aside fully. That's the problem. The problem is that we as people want to move past this and want to exercise our free will, but the conditioning keeps us in a stagnant position when it comes to that. Only people that have been through this understand what I'm talking about. Yeah. Let me know what you think. Ciao.